Hey guys, Pastor Alex here, and before we jump into the sermon, I just want to take a moment and say thank you so much for tuning in, watching with us today. We hope this blesses and encourages you, so enjoy the message.
For any of our new faces or new listeners, like Kevin mentioned, we've been in the middle of a series called What's in Your Hand, and this series has been circled around the life and times of a well-known biblical figure that goes by the name of Moses. And if I could sum this series up quickly, we've kind of been addressing the problem that we all deal with, and that a lot of times we are so focused on what we don't have and on what we can't do that a lot of times we miss out on what God has given us, on what we can do, and on everything that He's already placed in our hands. Because I know you don't feel like you bring much to the table. I know you don't feel like maybe you have a higher calling than somebody else, but that's not the truth at all. You have something in your hands. God has already given you gifts and talents and abilities and a yes and all that stuff that you do bring something to the table. You may not know what it is now, but it's in your hands, okay? And so to end this series off really strong, today we're going to continue talking about Moses. We're going to be in Exodus 17. We're going to start at verse number 8, and for the sake of time, I'm just going to go ahead and jump into this today. Exodus 17, starting at verse number 8, it says, "While the people of Israel were still at Rephidim, the warriors of Amalek attacked them. Moses then commanded Joshua, he says, 'Choose some men to go out and fight the army of Amalek for us. Tomorrow I'll stand at the top of the hill holding the staff of God.'" And man, you guys remember the staff of God? Remember, it used to just be a shepherd's staff, but now Moses has seen God use the gift that he put on his life to do great things, and it turned into the staff of God. He said, "I'm going to go use the staff of God. I'm going to hold it in my hand." And so Joshua did what Moses commanded him to do, and he fought the army of Amalek. Meanwhile, though, Moses, Aaron, and Hur. Say this with me. Say, Moses, Aaron, and Hur. Those are three really important names here, of course, along with Joshua. It says they climbed to the top of a nearby hill, and as long as Moses held up the staff in his hand, the Israelites had the advantage. But whenever he dropped his hand, the Amalekites gained the advantage. Moses' arms soon became so tired that he could no longer hold them up. So Aaron and Hur, they found a stone for Moses to sit on, and then they stood on each side of Moses, holding up his hands so that his hands held steady until sunset. And as a result, Joshua overwhelmed the army of Amalek in battle. Now, we can see from this verse that Moses had some really good friends. He had the type of friends that if Moses was from Gleason, because Gleason people do this kind of stuff, if he was in Gleason and he was going mudding at 1 a.m. and his truck got stuck in the mud and he needed to call one of his buddies because he snuck out of his house and his parents didn't know that he was out there doing it and getting the dad's truck all messed up, Moses had the type of friends that didn't question it. They were like, "We'll be there, man." Like they show up 1:30 in the morning, they would get his truck hooked up to all the straps and hitches and all that different stuff that country people use. And they would pull it out of the mud, and they wouldn't say anything to Moses about it. They'd be like, "We got you." Moses has some good friends in his corner, all right? He had some incredible buddies in his corner. And our title, and really the question that I'm going to be asking you guys today is, who's in your corner? Moses has some good people in your corner, but who is it that's in your corner? And when I say who's in your corner, what I mean is who's got your back? When your marriage is crumbling apart, when you feel that depression creeping in, or that addiction comes knocking at your door, who is it that you can really count on? Do you have anybody that you can really count on? And if the answer is yes, those people that you say you can count on, when they come to your rescue, are they pushing you toward your purpose, toward the plan that God has for you, toward God Himself, or are those people that you claim are your friends and that you can count on, are they the very ones that are setting you up to fail? Are they the very people that are putting you in a position to do the thing that you're probably not even supposed to be doing? And I ask you this question within the series of What's in Your Hand, because a lot of times the most important thing that God will ever put in your hand and at your fingertips and within your life are good, God-honoring friendships. Amen? Amen? There we go. So I want you to be thinking about this today. As we're talking through this message, who is it that's in your corner? Who's really in your corner, I want you to be writing names down, because some of you may write some names down at the beginning, and then by the end of this thing, you realize, I'm not really sure if those people should be in my corner. So just be doing that. If you're taking notes, for some of you who don't take notes, that's fine. Just hang out, listen, and be thinking about that. But I'm going to give you the rundown of what's happening in our scripture at this point, okay? Moses has just recently led the people of Israel out of Egypt. It hasn't been that long ago. They're just now kind of in the wilderness. They've had a couple ups and downs, but nothing that really compared to an all-out war. Like, it's one thing for Moses to make sure his people had food and water, because that's about all he'd had to do up to that point. It's a whole nother level of responsibility and leadership, though, that's on your shoulders when you're making sure that your people are okay, and like you're sending people into battle. You're sending humans to go and fight a war. That's level, like that's pressure. That's responsibility. I know many of our military vets or even current military, they would agree with that. That's a big deal, but nonetheless, we see Moses handle this situation like a boss. The Amalekites attack Israel, and I'm sure Moses at this point, he's confused, because he's like, are these guys just stupid, or did they not see what happened to the Egyptian army when they came after us? Like, let's remember, the last time an army came after Israel, the sea swallowed them up. And so Moses is like, I don't even know. But if these guys want a piece of us, then baby, we ain't going anywhere. Come get you some, because we ain't rookies anymore. Like, we're here, we run the show. And so he says, Joshua, this is what I need you to do, man. I said, I need you to go get your boys, get ready. We're going to teach them a lesson tomorrow. We're going to go pound these guys into the dirt. And what I'm going to do is, I'm going to grab that staff of God that we've already seen do so many great things, and I'm going to go over to that hill. And while you guys are fighting, I'm going to hold the staff up. And as I do, God's going to come through for us, and we're going to win the war. Sound good, Joshua? Joshua's like, sounds good, Moses, 10-4, buddy. So they go, they do it, they're fighting, and then we see something really interesting happening in the middle of this battle. The next day, when the battle is happening, as long as Moses is holding the staff up, the staff of God, as long as he's holding it up, Joshua and the army, they're experiencing success. The second, though, his arms get tired and the staff starts falling, we see Joshua and the army begin to lose the battle. We see them start struggling in a way that they hadn't struggled before. And so we then get an opportunity to see one of the coolest pictures of how important surrounding yourself with good friends is, because what happens is Aaron and Hur, they notice that Moses is struggling, and instead of watching him fail and then condemning him for it, later, instead of just bailing him out and going and doing it for him, and instead of allowing him to just give up and throw in the towel, Aaron and Hur go beside Moses, they hold his hands up, and they help him carry the weight of the battle that he was dealing with at the moment, teaching Moses and teaching all of us a great lesson in the fact that you can't win in life alone. You cannot win in life alone. I know some of you in here, you feel like lone rangers and you feel independent, but you can't be a lone ranger and expect to accomplish anything great for God. That's really just honestly that's not how it works. I know that God's given you your own purpose and your own calling and your own destiny, but having a calling is easy. Everybody is anointed in this room. Everybody in this room has been given a predestined, a pre-God-ordained calling and purpose on your life. But the goal, and I'm quoting my brilliant wife right here, the goal is not to have a calling. Once you say yes to Jesus, the goal is to step into that calling and to fulfill that calling. And I mean, you're going to get judged twice in heaven. The Bible says first you're going to get judged based off whether or not you believe in Jesus. That's how you get into heaven. But then it says once you pass that and you're like, yeah, I put my faith in him, I live for him, all that stuff, you're going to get judged again. And the second judgment is based on what you do with your calling. As a believer, the way you win this race, the way you win your life is by stepping into your calling. But the hard truth is you can't win in life alone. All right, now let me prove it to you, because I'm not just talking out of my head right here, okay? Let me show you this. Ecclesiastes 4. We're going to start in verse number 9. It says this: 2 people are better off than one. I mean, it's right there. 2 people are better off than one, for they can help each other succeed. If one person falls, the other can reach out and help. But somebody who falls and is alone is in trouble. Likewise, 2 people lying close to each other can keep one another warm, but how can someone be warm alone? A person, and this is great because he's literally talking about a battle right here. A person standing alone can be attacked and defeated, but 2 can stand back to back and conquer. 3 or even better, for a triple braided cord is not easily broken. You can't win in life alone. You can't win in life alone. And I know somebody in here, you're a wise guy, and you have your churchy answer ready to throw in my face, and you know exactly what it is that you need to say right now, and you're thinking it. You're like, luckily, I'm not alone. I've got God by my side. It's me. It's God. God's inside of me. I'm not alone, Alex. I don't know what you're talking about. Now, while that's true, while you may have God by your side, God himself tells us and preaches to us that you were not created to live and to grow alongside nobody. You were literally put here, created to live and grow alongside God and other people. Even God says that you and God is not enough. And I know some of you are like, what are you talking about? Look at Genesis 3:18 with me. This is what happens. The Bible says that God has made the heavens and the earth. He's created Adam. He's put Adam in the garden. He said, this is all yours. And then God says something really interesting. Genesis 3:18, he says, he looks at Adam alone in the garden. He says, it's not good for man to be alone. It's interesting. It's God. God is more than enough. He is my shelter. He is my comforter. He's the rose of Sharon. He's all that different stuff. And yet, he says it's not good for man to be alone. Man has God, but yet man is still considered alone. And I want to really hit on the point where he says it's not good, because it's the first time we ever hear God say that in the history of ever. As he's creating the heavens and the earth, he creates the space, and he says it's good. He creates the ocean. He says it's good. He creates the trees and the grass. He said it's good. He even creates the animals, Simba, Nemo, all those people. He said it's good. And then he looks at Adam all by himself, and for the first time he says, that's not good. He says, I'm going to make him a helper that's suitable for him, that's just right for him. And so God, like we said, he makes the animals, and he gets Adam the opportunity to name all the animals, and yet the animals are still not the right fit for Adam. And so God says, you know what? I'm going to make him another human. Puts him to sleep. He makes Eve out of Adam's side. And then we see God, when he creates Eve, he actually says something, one more thing that he's never said before. Because like I said, the phrase we hear coming out of God's mouth is, he created this, and it was good. He created this, it was good. He created this, it was good. Adam was alone, it was not good. But then he created another human. He created community. He put Adam in community and in relationship with another human being, and God doesn't just say it's good. He looks at this dynamic of people living together and growing together and operating side by side, and he says, this is very good. It's not just good, that's a whole nother level, man, and you can take that and you can flip it and know that if you having the right people in your corner, you having friends, you having somebody there for you is very good, then you being distant and you being away from other people, it's very bad. It's very good. Community is very good. Who is it that you have in your corner? You cannot win in life alone, man. You can't do it alone. You need the right people in your corner. Even God lives by this mantra. I think most of us get this, but in case you don't, look at Genesis 1:26 with me real quick. This is God before he ever creates Adam and Eve and people. I hope you guys are okay with this teaching today. I know I'm not like screaming and saying all this stuff maybe you've never heard before and getting everybody hyped up, but this is good. This is healthy for all of us to understand. Genesis 1:26, God says this. Let us, say us. It's weird that God said us, okay? Let us make human beings in our image to be like us. Excuse me? Let us make human beings in our image. This is in the very beginning, making it even more important than really any other scriptures. I mean, it's the law of first mentions. Let us make human beings in our image to be like us. In case you guys have never been taught this before, we serve one God who's made up of three distinctly different individuals, okay? We've got the Father, being Yahweh, the Father in heaven. You've got Jesus, the Son, God as man on earth, and then you've got the Holy Spirit. All three distinctly different, yet all three completely the same. All three different, all three one, and all three God. God himself is in community. God himself has somebody in his corner, and yet we think that we could possibly live our lives and do anything great without someone in our corner? How crazy is that? God himself lives by the mantra, man. That's why you and I, we need people in our corners. But hear me when I say this, dude. Yeah, you need someone in your corner. But you need the right people in your corner. It's not just good to have somebody. You need the right person. Your friends matter. The quality of your friends is ultra important, whether it's a boyfriend and a girlfriend, whether it's a family member that's you're in friendship with, or whether it's that friend that you've been with for as long as you can remember, the friend that's always been your friend. Your friends matter. Look at the person next to you. Just tell them that. Say, your friends matter. Some of you need to leave here today and get your notes out. Write it on your notes. Screenshot it. Set it as your background. Write that down in your notes. In general, make a t-shirt and wear it around because your friends matter. You can't just hang out with anybody, okay? You got to make sure that the quality of the people you're hanging out with, like, deserve your presence. It's a big deal. 1 Corinthians 15:33. I'm going to throw it up on the screen real quick. This is what it says concerning your friends. 1 Corinthians. It says, bad company corrupts good character. Ooh, that's a life verse for somebody. It was me. That was a life verse for me in high school, man. My dad was my youth pastor, and any youth pastors in here know. There's like 3 things that you talk about. Like you pray, you talk about living pure, and you talk about having the right friend group because it's super important. Bad company corrupts good character. Friendships can make you and break you. Don't be deceived, man. I can't tell you how many times, whether I was in youth group, whether I was a youth pastor, whether I was a pastor, whether I was just putting garage doors up with my dad. I cannot tell you how many times I've seen people who were just in love with God. They were pursuing more of God, going after growth, pursuing their full potential. They were giving him everything, and then all of a sudden, they get derailed because of a friendship or because of a relationship that they shouldn't have been in the whole time. People whose lives get totally wrecked. Man, you see them come in here, and they're just crying. They fill out a card. They get on a team. They get in a group. And then a few weeks later, they're nowhere to be found. A few weeks later, you see them posting on Facebook, and you're like, what are you thinking? And the reason, the cause behind all this, and they're doing stuff that they didn't even do before. They're making even worse decisions, and it's all because they allowed the wrong people to get in their corner. Who you have in your corner matters, man. The only thing more dangerous than having nobody in your corner, than having no friends in your corner, is having the wrong friends in your corner. I'm telling you, man, you got to watch it. And let me address this really quickly because I know right now what most of you have in mind is you're thinking of the people who in the past they dealt with alcohol or they dealt with drugs. We always go to that when we think about put yourself around the right people because everyone knows. If you're dealing, you don't want to relapse, you can't hang out. But this isn't just for them. Now, is it for that group of people? Absolutely. But every single person in here has somebody in your life that's considered bad company to you. Everybody. In fact, when we read the verse in 1 Corinthians 15:33 where Paul says bad company corrupts good character, he's not talking about like your typical sinner. When Paul says bad company, he's actually referring to people who call themselves believers. He's referring to people who go to church. He's talking to those of us who we know God is calling us higher. And he's asking us to take more steps toward him. And he's asking us to let some people go and to lay some things down because what's happening is we get around those old friends or even those old family members, even the ones that go to church. And it don't take long until we're saying things that we hadn't said in a long time. We're gossiping like in a way we haven't gossiped in a long time. The anxiety that we thought was gone is all of a sudden there. We have these desires that we haven't had in a long time. All of the new convictions that the Lord's been inserting into our spirits, all of a sudden those are gone out the window. We're watching movies that we shouldn't be watching. We're doing whatever, man. The very things that Jesus saved us from. We get around those old people and all of a sudden we're doing all that same stuff again. And that was the story of my high school career. I remember getting saved right before my junior year in high school. Oh my gosh. Get saved, go to a conference, give my life to Jesus, get baptized, just excited, ready to go. And then a few weeks later, hanging out with the same people, and I'm laughing at the same jokes that I was laughing at before. And I'm doing this. I'm sneaking out of my house like I was before. Sliding in the DMs like I was before. I wasn't even a term back then, but I was doing it. I'll go to youth group on Wednesday night, just hungry for God. Get in there. I'd have this moment. I'll give you everything, God. You use me to change my friends. Use me, God. And then give me a day or two with those same friends that I'm praying for, my boys back in the day. And now all of a sudden, I'm doing worse things than I was doing before I ever even got saved. Dude, I don't care how strong you think you are or how advanced you think you are. Your friends matter. You can't surround yourself with just anybody, dude. It's really important who it is that you put in your corner because bad company corrupts good character every single time. And I can hear, once again, it's like the Lord's just speaking to me right now. I can hear the churchy comments going on in your head. But Alex, you can't tell me this. Jesus was a friend of sinners. You're supposed to love people right where they are. My rebuttal to that is, of course, you're supposed to love people right where they are. But you can't use that as an excuse to hang around people who are bad influences on you. Dude, it was early on in the Bible that Jesus said, if there's anybody that's holding you back from following me, you got to ditch them. Yeah, he said, I don't care if it's your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, your aunt, your uncle, or your friend, or your boyfriend, or your girlfriend, or Facebook itself. He said, if it's holding you back from me, you got to give them up. Because here, man, reality check, ladies and gentlemen, Jesus could get around anybody and not be poorly influenced because he was God. Unfortunately, we don't have that same ability because we're not God. So you got to watch who it is that you hang around. Look at this verse, Proverbs 13:20. Oh, it's so good. It says, walk with the wise and become wise. Associate with fools and get yourself in trouble. Some of our high schoolers said, amen, Brother Alex. Been there, I'm grounded because I got around some fools. Some of our college kids said, man, I feel you. I wasn't dealing with this until I got around these people. Everybody in here. We've all had that moment. You get around wise people, guess what? You play up. All of a sudden now you're wiser than you ever were. You're like living better than you ever have. You get around some fools, you play right down to their level. You get around fools, you get yourself in trouble, man. If your friends are bringing you down, you got to separate from them. You got to. And it's not just for their benefit. It is for their benefit. Or it's not just for your benefit. It is for yours. It's for their benefit as well. Because a lot of times, this is the really interesting thing about this whole scenario. A lot of the times, the only thing that's holding your friend back from having an encounter with God is you. You are the very thing that's keeping your friend from progressing in God. You remember, the friends that you pray for in youth group, the friends that you come in here when you're worshiping and someone's like, man, I just want you to begin praying for someone who needs a touch from God. You're praying for those friends, you're praying for those family members, and then you go and you get around those friends and family members, and then they start rubbing off on you, and that's the exact same as they do. And now all of a sudden, it doesn't make any sense for you to tell them that they need Jesus in their life because all they have to do is look at your life and know that, well, they have Jesus, and they're not doing anything different than me. They don't look any different, so why in the world would I need Jesus? It becomes completely non-essential for them to go after what it is you're praying for because of your actions. A lot of the times we're the ones holding our friends back. Man, as hard as it is to separate from people, because it is hard. I've had to do it. I've had to do it a bunch of times. My family, my wife, they'll tell you, I'm not up here preaching something that I haven't done. It's not always easy. Sometimes they get offended. Sometimes they don't understand why you're not hanging out with them anymore. But if you love them, and if you love you, and if you love God, it's worth it. You got to separate yourself from the people that are holding you back. You got to make sure that you got the right people in your corner. Because not all friends are created equal. This is what I'm talking about, all right? Jesus, he preached this like with his own life. We see him spend a little bit of time with the crowds and with the Pharisees and with the sinners. And he even got like lashed and gossiped for even doing that. But then we see him spend a lot more time with a group of about 70 close followers. And then we see him spend even more time with the 12 disciples. And then we see him spend even more time with 3 of those disciples, being Peter, James, and John. And then even within Peter, James, and John, we see him spending even more time with just John and Peter. That's why when Jesus died And then Mary comes to the disciples and she's like, he's risen from the grave. Who are the first two there? John and Peter. Because those are the people that Jesus had in his corner. Jesus knew he had the right people in his corner. He picked the two that he knew were going to be there whenever he rose from the grave. They were the first two there. Man, they weren't perfect, and your friends aren't going to be perfect either, and you're not perfect either, but they were the right people. You got to have the right people in your corner. This one time in high school, I went to a baseball game with my buddies. I played baseball, high school baseball, from 8th grade until about the beginning of my sophomore year, and then I quit. I went to South Fulton, so 8th graders could play high school baseball because we didn't have enough people. And quit my sophomore year, and so I went to a game with a bunch of my buddies, and what we started doing is we were having so much fun with our student section in football and in basketball. You know the student sections that people are like, they're jumping up and down, and their faces are painted, and they've got the signs, and they're screaming at the other teams, and they're like getting really inappropriate, but it's like a lot of fun still, those student sections. We brought those student sections to our baseball games because, once again, it's South Fulton. We don't have anything else to do. It's not like we had places to go. So everyone would come to the baseball games, and the whole student section would be in the bleachers right behind home plate. At a baseball game, and like 20 other people are at this game because no one cared about us. We were awful at baseball. But we're sitting out there, got our shirts off, faces painted, going for it, all right? And we were ruthless. I'm talking, we were mean. And I remember this one game in particular, we're playing Gleason. One more time, shout out to the fine city of Gleason. We're playing Gleason, and it was the one team that we could like match up with. I think we only won like 2 games that year, and we were like, man, I think we could probably match up with Gleason. Like, we can always usually hang in with them. We didn't always win, but we could it was not a blowout. And so we were all there. We were excited to go. And their best batter steps up to the plate. And this guy is huge, okay? I mean, a giant of a guy. He was their middle linebacker. He may have even gone and played college ball. I'm pretty sure he did. But his biceps are as big as my face. I mean, this guy's, he's giant. And he gets up to bat, and we're giving it to him. I mean, we are holding nothing back. He swings and he misses, and the whole student section falls down on the ground, acting like the wind from his miss knocked us all over. And then the next time he swings and he fouls it off behind him, and someone stands up like, you hit it the wrong way. You're supposed to hit the ball forward, you idiot. Like they're screaming at him. And even the crowd at this point is like, you guys probably shouldn't be doing this. Like, oh, that's a little bit, tone it down a little bit. And tensions are riding high at this point in the baseball game. And the guy ends up getting walked, and when he does the one thing that you're never supposed to do. He interacts with the student section. He throws his bat, and he turns, and he's looking at us, and we're like, oh, we're about to give it to him now. Like, you thought you got something before. We're like, get ready. So he gets on the base, and everyone is just screaming at him. I don't even know what is being said. It's like not even words. It's just like, we're just screaming at this kid. And he goes, and the first pitch, just to really get everyone, he goes to steal second base. And he does, but unfortunately for him, when he steals second, he slides in head first, and he breaks his pinky. Of all the things to break, your pinky. Like, it's not the most insanely cool bone in your body to break. It's one thing you break your neck or you break your knee or his pinky. And he ends up he's like, he's over there. This poor guy, he's doing this, and the student section is, no mercy, no empathy on this poor kid at all. And he ends up having to leave the game. And when he does, one of my friends, JP Fowler, in case he's watching, he's probably not, but in case he is, he stands up, and you got to know, and I'm going to tell a little bit of story on JP right now. I probably wouldn't love that I'm saying this, but I'm going to anyways. JP at the time, he's a freshman. He's pretty small. He's not small anymore, but he was pretty small at the time. And he called himself Fast Hands Fowler because a few weeks earlier than that, he had popped a kid in the nose and broke it. And so he dubbed himself Fast Hands Fowler. And so we're like, okay, Fast Hands Fowler. So Fast Hands Fowler stands up from the student section and, quote, he yells, oh, is the little mommy's boy hurt? And we're all just like, we're all screaming and laughing. We thought it was so funny. And even the Gleason crowd is like, that was probably a little inappropriate. I'm not really sure why you said that. Like, tone it down, but, we're not worried about it. And JP's really not worried about it until he realizes, because he rode with me to the game, until he realizes that I was about to have to leave. And that was going to put us exiting the game and walking into the parking lot at the same time as this big, giant Gleason baseball player. And when he figures that out, he was like, hey, dude, can I see your keys real quick? And I'm like, yeah. And he grabs them, and I am not flattering you when I say this. He runs as fast as he can to my car and jumps in the back seat and covers up in a blanket. I promise you, this is not a joke. I'm not saying that like this really happened. He's covered up in a blanket, and I'm just like, that idiot. I'm like, whatever, dude. If you can't talk, if you can't back it up, how are you going to stand up and call him a little mommy's boy? Well, fortunately for JP, big giant Gleason guy didn't see him. But as I'm walking to the car, big giant Gleason guy sees me. And I'm like, oh my God, what's about to happen to my life? Because he looks at me from across the parking lot and he throws his hands up. And he's with his parents, but it doesn't stop him. He starts cussing me out from across the parking lot. And for the first time in my life, my fight or flight kicks in, and it was fight. Normally I'm like, oh, I'm like running away. I'm a lover. I'm not a fighter. For the first time, he starts yelling at me, throws his hands up, cussing at me. And I'm like, what? What'd you say? That's my friend you're talking about. And my other friend, right beside me, his name's CJ. He's my best friend. He was like, and he grabs me, he's like, Alex, shut up. What are you doing? You freaking idiot. He's like pulling me over to my car. And I'm screaming at the guy. I don't even know, like I'm about to attack him or something. What am I? I'm going to hit the guy and hurt myself. Like this guy, he's huge. And so CJ's grabbed me. He's opened my car door. He's thrown me in the car. He's like, drive. And I'm like, all right. I come to my senses and I'm thinking, what was I just doing? Who is that a demon on the inside of me? Like, did I just get, I don't even know who that was. And we're driving off and I say this story because had the freshman kid, JP, Fast Hands Fowler, had he been the only kid in my corner, had he been the only friend in my corner, my future may have looked a little bit differently. I may have gotten into a fight. My nose may have gotten even more beat up than it already sometimes maybe looks. I may have gotten embarrassed. I don't know, but thank goodness I had the right people in my corner, because when that happens, CJ grabs me and he's like, no, we're leaving, we're going. And thank goodness I left, because I stand in front of you today as a man who did not get destroyed by the Gleason baseball player. And I stand in front of you today as a man with a bright and promising future. And I say this and I tell you this story because your friendships will determine your future. Look around at the people who you are hanging out with, because that's who you're turning into. Do you like what you see when you look at your friend group? Because that's what you're going to turn into. I know most of you have heard this before, but there was a study done years ago, and they came to the conclusion that you are the sum total of the 5 people that you surround yourself with the most. And while it's a cool study, a more recent study was done that said not only are you the sum total of the 5 people you surround yourself with the most, you are the sum total of the 15 people that you spend the most time with, meaning that you are actively turning into the people that you are around the most. Right now, as you're sitting in these chairs, you are actively evolving into whatever it is that you have surrounded yourself with. Now, for some of you, that is not good. That's a bad thing. And you can probably tell me already if you know that's a bad thing. But while on one hand, that can be a bad thing, on the other hand, it can be a really great thing. Proverbs 27:17, it says, as iron sharpens iron, so a friend sharpens a friend. That's a cool verse, man. He's saying, if you want to become the best version of yourself, then get around people who are better than you. Get around people who can sharpen you and can turn you into that. That's why it's no surprise that we see Moses doing great things, because all you got to do is look at the people who he'd surrounded himself with. All you got to do is look at his friends. This is what I'm talking about. For most of us, we read the story of Moses and we don't realize that when Moses climbed the mountain, Mount Sinai, and he experienced the presence of God and God's goodness, and he heard the voice of God, he didn't do that just one time. I know, like we read it, but you got to really read it. Most people believe, and most scholars would even believe, that Moses did it 5 or 6 times. And while he climbed that mountain and he went after the presence of the Lord by himself the first time, as the journey continues, we see Moses doing it alongside other people as well. Real quickly, look at Exodus 19. We'll start in verse number 23 and we'll read to 24. It says, But Lord, Moses protested, the people can't come up to Mount Sinai. You already warned us. You told me, mark off a boundary around the mountain to set it apart as holy. But the Lord said, no. I want you to go down and I want you to bring Aaron back up with you. So now we see that Moses has surrounded himself with Aaron, somebody who shares his joy for being in the presence of God, somebody who's actively hearing the voice of God, somebody who is concerned with the same things that Moses is concerned with. Well, then you fast forward a few chapters later, you get to chapter 24, verse 9, it says Moses goes up again, except this time it says, then Moses, Aaron, we already got that, but Moses, Aaron, Nadab, Abihu, and the 70 elders of Israel all climbed up the mountain. Now, what you got to know is when it says the 70 elders, you remember a guy named Hur? There was Moses, Aaron, Hur, Joshua at the beginning of the story. Hur was one of those elders. So all of a sudden now, we see Moses, not just with Moses, not just with Aaron, but Moses, Aaron, Hur, all of these elders of Israel, they're all climbing the mountain. They're all going after the presence of God. They're all entertaining themselves with God rather than other things. You see that all of their priorities are becoming the same. He's not surrounding himself with people who don't care about God. He's surrounding himself with people that share his priorities, that share his hunger and thirst for more of God and for the voice of God and for the presence of God. And then you look about 3 verses down, you get to verse number 12. It says, God calls Moses up the mountain, and then this time he asks him to bring somebody else. Look at it. And the Lord said to Moses, come up to me on the mountain, stay there, and I'll give you the tablets of stone on which I've inscribed the instructions and the commands so that you can teach the people. And then catch this last part. So Moses and his assistant Joshua set out, and Moses climbed up the mountain. Notice, all 3 of the other guys, other than Moses, in our original passage, Aaron, Hur, and Joshua, they're all climbing the mountain with Moses. They're all concerned with going deeper in God. They're all sharing those same priorities. And so when we read the passage from the very beginning, and we see that Israel's going to war, and we see that Moses' arms are struggling, it's not a surprise when we see that Joshua happens to be the one leading the army. And it's not a surprise when we see that Aaron and Hur are the ones that have come alongside Moses and helped him lift his arms whenever they get tired, because Moses had surrounded himself with the right people. And because of that, they naturally won the battle. It's not just about the people around you. It's about making sure, if you want to win, if you want to step into your calling, your purpose, you want to go after everything that God has set for you from the foundation of time and from the moment you were born. It's not just about getting around people. It's about surrounding yourself with the right people. The right people. Dude, your friends are doing one of 2 things. They are either pulling you from your destiny or they are pushing you towards your destiny. There is no middle ground. None. There's no gray area there. Either your buddies, the people, your family, whoever you're with the most. One of 2 things. Pushing you toward God, pulling you from God. Pushing you towards your calling, pulling you from your calling. Who's in your corner, man? What are they doing? Are the people in your corner actually doing that? Is there anybody in your corner? If they are, should they be in your corner? You need the right people in your corner. Hope you guys understand what I'm talking about when I say the phrase in your corner. It's a boxing term. If you've ever watched boxing, you know that boxers get one side of the ring to themselves, one corner of the ring. And opposite corners are the opposite teams and the opposite trainers. And between rounds, boxers will go to their respective corner, and their team and their family and their friends and trainers, whoever's over there, they'll hydrate them, they'll wipe them off, they'll get their, they'll put the little patches on their eye, and they'll talk through whatever they need to talk through, right? So that's what I'm talking about when I say in your corner. Now, how many of you have ever seen any of the Rocky movies by a show of hands? Anybody? The majority of the room, and because most of you have seen it and you didn't even raise your hand, and I don't understand why we can't raise our hands, but for the majority, I'm sure you've seen the Rocky movies, and if you have seen any of them, best bet says you've seen Rocky 4, the one with Ivan Drago, and he's the big Russian machine of a man who comes onto the scene. He's super intimidating, and he's trying to get Rocky's attention. And so to do it, he goes and he fights Rocky's buddy in an exhibition match, and when he does, he mercilessly beats the guy to death on live television. And everyone's like, oh my gosh, like what has just happened? Well, Rocky is like gonna avenge his friend's death, and so he goes, he says he's gonna fight Drago, and his friends and his family are like, no, you can't do this. What are you thinking? You're crazy. You shouldn't do it. And Rocky's doing it anyways. And we see these cool scenes where Drago, when he's training, he's in these cool like scientific rooms with the cords hooked up to him, and he's running, and people are getting all of his stats, and he's like breaking things when he's punching them. And then we see Rocky training, and he's like up in a mountain with snow, like carrying a log on his back, like drinking those weird egg drinks where they just pop an egg into a cup and just chug it. Like, that's what Rocky's doing, and you're like, I don't know if this is going to go well. And no one thought it was going to go well. And the day the fight finally arrives, everyone's worst fear is happening as they're fighting. Drago is tearing Rocky up. I mean, he's giving him the work at this point, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, Rocky's going to die. He's going to die just like his buddy died. But then, as the fight's going on, you see this one moment where Rocky finds an opening, and he smashes the guy right in the face. And when he does, Drago starts bleeding. And as he starts bleeding, you hear all of Rocky's friends in his corner. They're saying, Rocky, he's bleeding. He's cut. Get him, Rock. Get him. You can do it. Because all of a sudden they're realizing he's not a machine anymore. He's a man. So he's got his corner just behind him. And the momentum, you start to see it. Where it was in Drago's favor, all of a sudden now the momentum is shifting back in Rocky's favor. And at the end of that round, Rocky goes back to his corner. And as his team is getting him prepared, they're talking through stuff, his buddy gets in his face. And he says, Rocky, he's not a machine. He's a man. He said, no pain, no pain, no pain. It's time, baby. This is your time. You got to go out there, and you got to win this thing, Rock. And so Rock gets out there, and he's like, all right, man, you go for it. And they end up going to the full distance of this whole thing. They go to the final round of what's happening. And when the fight, and in between every round, you see the same thing happening. Rocky going back to his corner. His teammates talking to him, pumping him up. Going out there fighting, Rocky going back to his corner. And by the time the last round gets there, not only is his corner in his corner, all of a sudden now Rocky has won the praise and the affection of the entire crowd. And it's crazy because the fight is happening in Russia. So all these Russian people are chanting, Rocky, Rocky. And now with all of these people in his corner, we see Rocky come out. And at the end of the fight, he's giving him these body shots, back to back to back to back. And Rocky, he's taking a beating too. He's giving all these body shots. And finally, he lands a haymaker and he knocks Drago out for good. And we see Rocky end up winning the fight, coming through. And it makes this historical movie moment for all of us to see and enjoy, and especially if you're there. And what I want to communicate to you guys today is that, like Rocky, everybody in here is fighting for something. Everyone in here is carrying the weight of some kind of battle in your hands. Maybe it's the battle for your sobriety. Maybe it's the battle for your marriage. Maybe it's the battle for your friends, for your family, for your mental health, for your grades, for your finances. I don't know. But everyone's fighting some kind of battle. And you need to know, Moses, you're not going to be able to win it on your own. You were not created to carry the kind of weight and the kind of responsibility that you're carrying all by yourself. I know it feels easy in the moment, it feels like no problem, but I'm telling you, I don't know when the day's coming, but it's coming where your arms are going to start getting tired and your legs are going to start giving out from under you. And those things that used to be so easy in one season to hold up and to maintain, it's not going to be easy anymore because those people you thought were your friends, they're going to leave you. And those prayers that you were hoping would get answered, they're not going to get answered like you would hope that they would. And that job is going to disappear, and that person might pass away. And whenever that stuff is happening, man, I hope you got the right people in your corner. The kind of people that when your legs are shaking under the pressure of life, they'll pull up a chair for you to sit in. The kind of people that when you feel like giving up and you feel like quitting, they won't let you quit. They'll come beside you. They'll hold your arms up so that you can carry the weight of whatever responsibility that you're having to carry in that season of your life. The kind of people, man, that won't give up on you. The kind of people that'll remind you of God's truth even when the only truth you can see is your current reality, because that's not always the truth. God's truth trumps current reality, and you need people in your life who can tell you God's truth, because one day it's going to get tough. People, because one day, man, I don't know if I can finish school. I feel alone. I don't have any money. I don't know if I can hold these grades up on my own, man. I think it's time for me to drop out.
I got you. I'm going to help you study. You're going to graduate. You're not going to quit now, Alex. I got you, man. I'm in your corner.
And I've been clean. I've been sober for about 4 weeks. But you guys don't know my boss. if he talks to me like that one more time, I swear I'm going to drink again.
It's not worth it, Alex. It's not worth it. You can do this. I'm going to be here every single step of the way.
And I love my family. Honestly, I do love my wife and I love my kids, but God, it feels so hard to hold up sometimes, man. I don't know if I can even stay.
God's grace is more than enough to make you and your family last. You got to start being the leader of your family, Alex. I got you. Don't quit.
Man, I'm in high school, and you expect me to live pure? All of my friends are drinking and having sex and going to parties, and I'm supposed to carry this kind of way. I can't do that.
No, you have to. Your friends need you to lead the way. That you have to be the light in their darkness.
And you guys don't get it. I lost my job. I'm filing for disability. My wife left. I don't know if I can go on anymore. I don't think I want to live
Alex, wake up.
anymore.
God still has a plan for you.
He does. You matter. Your life matters. He's going to work it out for your good. You know that.
We could go on doing this all day long, but surely at this point you guys get the message. Your friendships and your relationships, they matter. They're really important. You got to make sure you got people that are coming alongside you that can hold you up whenever you need them to hold you up, man. Who's in your corner? Would you guys jump up on your feet? And while you do, would you give it up for Sam and Josh for helping me out just then? I love them. Who's in your corner? Who's in your corner? Who's really in your corner, man? The response today is going to look different all across the room. For somebody in here, you are in a dating relationship with someone who's holding you back. They're pressing your sexual boundaries that you know is against the will of God. And it's not time for you guys to have a conversation. It's time for you guys to break things off until you can be mature enough to have a relationship. For some of you in here, it's time for you to politely walk away from some friends that you love for the sake of your own health, for the sake of your own life. For some of you in here, it's time to quit giving a voice and a presence in your life to the family members who are holding you back and pulling you down and causing anxiety and stress to rise up on the inside of you every time you go over to their house. Dude, but for every single one of you in here, if you are not a part of an active church, if you're not actively a part of a church, that should be probably the first thing that you fix today. And it does not have to be this church. There are plenty of great churches in this region, okay? But it's important that you surround yourself with other people who are climbing the mountain, who are going after God, who care about the same things that you care about. And for those of you who are active members here, owners, contributors, who go here every week, we're about to have small group signups next weekend. And if you for 1 second think that you're going to grow in your walk with God without also growing in relationship with other people, you're crazy. We're giving you an opportunity. Man, it blows my mind because this isn't just a big church thing. People always complain about big churches, say it's so hard to connect. But dude, you can go to a small church and not connect with people as well. You realize that, right? It has nothing to do with the size of the congregation. It has to do with whether or not you are being intentional about getting people in your corner. For some of you, your response this morning, you came in here and you're like, man, I don't know if I'm signing up for a small group next week. And you got to leave today saying, I'm not sure which small group I'm signing up for, but I know that I'm signing up for one because I want to surround myself with the right people. You need people in your corner. And for some of you today, I want to reference what I mentioned earlier. God himself is community. And because of what Jesus did and his sacrifice on the cross, and because of him raising from the grave, he has given us the opportunity to join that community with God. He's given us the opportunity to be engrafted into the family of God. And whether you're in here today and you've never said yes to Jesus, you've never put your faith in him, and you're ready to give him everything and to become a part of the family of God for the first time, or whether you just feel distant from God. Maybe you said yes to God 10 years ago and you prayed some prayer and I've been there with you. And maybe today you just need to make a fresh start with God. I want to give everyone the opportunity in here to do whatever you need to do. For some of you, this is the opportunity for you to leave who you were behind and to follow Jesus instead. To leave the attitude and the lifestyle and yes, some of the people behind and to follow Jesus. To repent from your sins and to follow God. And when you do, in return, you'll receive the peace of God. You'll receive salvation. You'll receive His grace, His mercy, His forgiveness. You'll get to become a new creation. And best of all, you'll get to stand in front of God and in the eyes of God as clean and as blameless as Jesus Christ Himself. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the gospel. That's what's available for you this morning. And so if you're in here today and you need to make a fresh start with God, whether it's for the first time or for the first time in a long time, we're going to help you out. We're going to pray with you out loud, all together as a church, because the moment you say yes to Jesus, we're all in your corner now. You've got a room full of people at 11 a.m., at 9 a.m., who are in your corner. We're not going to let you start this thing alone. We're going to make sure you know when you need us, we'll be there then, but we're going to be here right from the beginning. So if you're ready for that fresh start, with eyes closed and with every mind and heart focused on Jesus and who He is and all He's done for us today. If you're ready to make that fresh start, then today, as we pray this together, I want you to pray this with every fiber of who you are. Here we go. Let's pray.
Hey guys, thanks so much for tuning in with us today. We hope this message blessed you and encouraged you. If you don't subscribe to our YouTube channel, be sure to do that. Click subscribe below. If you don't like our page on Facebook or follow us on Instagram, be sure to do that too. And if you want to give into the move of God happening here at Overflow Church, all you got to do is go to overflowchurchonline.com and it'll walk you through the steps. So we love you guys. We appreciate you tuning in with us. Have an incredible day.